and the first webinar of your orientation, Countdown to VISTA Service. Your VISTA service is a year-long commitment, and this period before you start service is meant to provide you with the opportunity to learn more about VISTA service, as well as to really ensure that this is the right choice for you. My name is Chris Hawks, and I'm joined here by Barbara Reynolds. We're going to be your host today from VISTA headquarters here in Washington, D.C. You'll also see our AmeriCorps VISTA colleagues assisting with the question and answers, Samantha Stouts, Brittany Madison, Khadijah Carr, and Jacob Doney, I believe, as well. Jake will be helping, as well as our partners at LSI, Sabrina and Kim, who will assist with the chat and Q&A. And so we saw there's a bunch of you on this webinar. It's quite a large orientation. We loved seeing all the comments in the pre-session chats, and those types of comments really show that you've all come to the right place. Some of you have seen poverty firsthand, and all of you see VISTA as an opportunity tied to the purpose of helping others.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. This is Barbara. I want to add my welcome as well, and thank you all for joining AmeriCorps VISTA and for being on our webinar today. I really hope the year ahead for you is going to be wonderful and filled with challenging experiences, and I really look forward to working with you on today's session. From all of us here at headquarters, not just me and Chris and our colleagues on the webinar, we're very excited to welcome you and help get you prepared for your VISTA year ahead. So let's begin looking at the session objectives for today's webinar. Chris and I are going to talk through several things with you. First of all, we're going to talk about the types of support available to you as a VISTA member. We want to talk about what you need to complete before you start service next Tuesday. Lots of things to do this week. We want to talk with you about what to do on your very first day of service next Tuesday. We'll cover some of the benefits you'll receive as a VISTA member, and then talk about some of the conditions of your VISTA service. And as Chris said, we will have the Q&A panel open throughout this webinar, and I see a bunch of folks are typing in there already, so we'll have time for your questions throughout the webinar. All right, Chris, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so let's start by looking at the two main websites that will support you both throughout the year and really even after your year of service, the MyAmeriCorps and the VISTA campus accounts. So in MyAmeriCorps, or my.americorps.gov, that's where you apply to your VISTA position. It's where you complete your direct deposit and other forms, and it's also where you can access your VISTA assignment description, or VAD. We'll commonly refer to it as the VAD. It's also where in a few weeks you will be able to access your living allowance statements. You'll be able to request certain benefits and print a letter that verifies your VISTA service. We'll talk a little about those later on. And then the VISTA campus, you all should be familiar with that as well, or vistacampus.gov. So that's where you complete your onboarding coursework and tutorials. It also has learning resources for your entire year, and it's really a great resource to learn more about all of your VISTA benefits. I can't stress that enough. It's a great place to check on benefits if you have a question. Additionally, the VISTA campus is where you can find the VISTA member handbook, which is a great source of information both now and throughout your year of service if you need to reference anything. You can also use the VISTA campus to connect with other VISTAs through the campus discussion forums or the campus map throughout the country.
Yeah, as Chris said, the VISTA campus has a lot to offer. I think today we'll be promoting the campus like crazy. Today we will also though point out just a few key resources to help you get oriented to the campus and really help you start your year strong. As Chris said, we really want to encourage you to delve into the VISTA campus. It has important information. It's definitely an important element in helping you navigate your year of service. It helps you build skills. It can give you professional development opportunities. And as Chris indicated, there are ways to connect with each other and learn other things about VISTAs in your area and around the country. So a quick look at the navigation bar, you should see on the side in front of you, lets you know that there are materials to help you as you live and serve as a VISTA member. And here's just a quick snapshot of what's under the Learning Resources section of the VISTA campus. You can also locate and reach out to other VISTAs, as Chris indicated, using the map and the VISTA forum links. You can see those, I think, on the slide on the lower left side of the screenshot here for you. So on the VISTA campus as well, you can find links and see that we offer webinars on a range of topics related to life as a VISTA, such as living on the living allowance and using the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award. We also provide webinars on the work of a VISTA, so topics like building a digital ad campaign or strategizing your funding search. We do record those webinars, and we will post links to them on the VISTA campus as well over the course of your service year, so you can go back and watch those links anytime. In addition to the webinars that are designed and delivered by the VISTA training unit, AmeriCorps VISTA has another training opportunity that might interest you called the AmeriCorps VISTA In-Service Training, or IST. The in-service training is designed to bring together VISTA members early in their service years to strengthen particular skills, build knowledge, and create networks to help, again, help you have successful service years. We're going to talk a little bit more about the in-service training on next Tuesday's webinar, but just want to indicate that that's a resource for you as well.
And so we also want to go on where to get support. So throughout your year, you'll likely want, and really at times you're going to need some type of support. The VISTA program involves a lot of different layers and that helps support the work that VISTAs are doing, as well as supporting all of you, the VISTA members. And first off is your supervisor. So your supervisor is there to support you in your day-to-day tasks. It's important to keep your supervisor up to date with any changes in your plans maybe. So if your plans do change and maybe, for example, you can't relocate at this time or a personal circumstance prevents you from serving, please let both your VISTA supervisor and myself, Chris Hawks, let us know as soon as possible. And then next is the CNCS State Office. Your state office is the CNCS office that oversees your project. They could be a great resource for you if you have any concerns about your project or if there is a question that your supervisor can't answer. The state office can be easily reached by email using the state abbreviation at cns.gov. So for example, the state of Texas, if you're serving there, your state office would be tx@cns.gov. And then finally, you are also supported by VISTA headquarters, which includes the VISTA training unit and the VISTA member support unit, or the VMSU, among other departments. The VMSU is a super helpful resource for questions regarding your VISTA benefits. There's an AmeriCorps VISTA resources and contact sheet that can be found on the Starting VISTA page. That's the page that you're directed to right when you get enrolled into VISTA member orientation. That Starting VISTA page on the VISTA campus. That PDF for the resources and contacts we included in today's handouts to download pod for this webinar. And it really is a great cheat sheet, a one-pager that shows you who you can contact for specific questions, both now and throughout your year of service. So we certainly suggest you keep a copy of this where you can find it. You can also manage your own support by taking time to navigate the VISTA campus and My AmeriCorps so that you are familiar with them and know where to go. And when in doubt, you can always contact your CNCS state office or the VISTA member support unit through the National Service Hotline.
Great, so now let's talk about the things you need to do before your first day of service next Tuesday. By now you should have received an email that pointed you to that Starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus that Chris just indicated. If you haven't had a chance to check that out yet, please do so as quickly as you can. I'm going to highlight what's included there and what needs to be completed by you before you start your service next week. All right, so some of the good stuff, the paperwork. So one of the requirements is to complete your onboarding forms, your onboarding paperwork, including your direct deposit, your federal tax withholding or your W-4 form, your unpaid compensation information, and your end of service benefit selection. So that's a lot of words, a lot of paperwork for you. All of these forms are located in the myamericorps.gov portal, and they must be completed as quickly as you can right away this week. We have to get these forms from you so that we can complete your official enrollment in VISTA, and we have to have them in order to process that living allowance for you and other benefits. So we want to get the paperwork, and we know that you want to get that stuff completed as well. There are special provisions that apply to some benefits for VISTA members once you start service. So please be sure to read all of the information as closely as you can. We're going to review a few of these provisions just a little bit later on today as we go through our presentation. All right, so in addition to those onboarding forms, we're also asking you to complete a few courses and tutorials online. These online courses are located again on that Starting VISTA page of the VISTA campus, and they must be completed this week as well. The courses will give you some great information about how to start your VISTA year, what's important at the beginning, and how to really start strong. I just want to make a special note about the Terms and Conditions course that's linked to your account in the MyAmericorps portal. You would definitely want to make sure that you complete the Terms and Conditions course and that you certify your acceptance there in the portal. You have to do that. You have to accept the Terms and Conditions of Service in order to enter VISTA and, again, to be officially enrolled as a VISTA member. So all of this paperwork and all of this online work will really help us ensure that you get enrolled, that you receive your living allowance, and, again, those other benefits that you may qualify for. And the courses, the online courses and tutorials, we think give you a lot of really good information as well to help guide you in these first few weeks as a VISTA. Just a reminder, I know I'm repeating myself, it's so important. We just want to make sure that you complete this paperwork and these courses before you show up at your VISTA site next Tuesday. A couple of the things, the benefits of service and the VISTA campus overview may not show up for you when you're in the system, that you've completed them. They may not give you a message that you've completed them, and that's okay. That's how the programs are set up on the campus. Just please continue along your list of things to do and things to complete. The VISTA Member Support Unit or VISTA directly will reach out to you if we see that any of this is missing, any of your required paperwork or other items are missing.
And now we're going to talk a little bit about your first day of service. So we expect you all to be at your VISTA project, which is the office where you will be serving on your first day of service, Tuesday, September 3rd, 2019. And remember that as a VISTA member, you serve for a full year, 365-day term. Those of you who are relocating to serve must be moved into your new places by then and show up to your site on that first day. If you are unable to show up on this date, or if you are unsure where to go, make sure you contact your supervisor or state office immediately. And let us know by responding to any of the emails you receive from myself, Chris Hawks. As a VISTA, you will be serving in a professional work environment, and you'll want to set yourself up for success. We highly suggest you confirm your plans with your VISTA supervisor. If you haven't, maybe you haven't been in contact for a while, we would certainly suggest reaching out. Or maybe if you are unsure of the address where you need to report, it'd be a good idea to just reach out. We also recommend confirming perhaps the exact time to show up, whether it's 9 a.m., 8 a.m., it might be different from project to project. So confirming beforehand what time to show up on your first day. Also the dress code of the organization, perhaps the parking situation if you happen to be driving, or any other special considerations, maybe the average commute time, if you should bring anything with you, maybe paperwork on the first day or some form of identification. When you try to reach out, if you're unable to get into contact with your supervisor, please reach out to your CNCS state office and they will help you out. The VISTA program is not responsible for securing your housing. However, if you're in need of housing, you should speak with your supervisor first, as they likely know the area and may be able to advise you on some possible options. You can also search the discussion forums on the VISTA campus to see maybe if other VISTA members utilized each other and resources on the discussion forums. You might be able to grab some ideas, whether they're local ideas or maybe it's an app that helps find a good place. So it's a great place to check out. Take advantage of other housing options, of course, if you can, but also be aware to avoid scams when doing so. So some possible signs of scams are options that just seem too good to be true, maybe emails from iffy email addresses or listings that have distorted images or spelling mistakes. Stay away from. Along with your new supervisor support on the first day, which again is next Tuesday, September 3rd, VISTA headquarters will present a webinar called Launching Your VISTA Service at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And similar to this webinar, you're going to receive an email from Adobe Connect with details for joining the session. We'll highlight in the webinar certain points and decisions you must make about your benefits and terms of service. Please note that this will not be a comprehensive overview of your benefits. We will trust that you have reviewed the benefits page on the VISTA campus and that you understand your benefits as a whole. On that webinar next Tuesday, we'll also administer the oath of office to you. You're going to get more details on next Tuesday's webinar, including details on the new electronic oath submission process, which we're very happy to say no more paper oath forms, which we had forever, but finally electronic oaths. And just make sure you know and remember your My AmeriCorps account password or login information by Tuesday, because you'll have to submit your electronic oath in your My AmeriCorps account just after the webinar is over. Also on your first day of service, your supervisor will give you a fingerprint kit and instructions as part of the required VISTA background check process. Please note that you will need to use the specific fingerprint kit provided, and you will have 30 days to get fingerprinted starting from your first day of service, so 30 days from September 3rd. We'll also go over this in plenty more detail during next week's webinar, the fingerprint process.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. So I get to talk about one of my favorite things now, just the VISTA assignment description. First of all, just to give a quick overview, you guys know you're about to join VISTA, or Volunteers in Service to America, which is a federal program started in 1965. About 30 years later, the federal program called VISTA joined the AmeriCorps family of programs in 1994 and was taken under the umbrella of the Corporation for National and Community Service, or CNCS. So you'll hear that acronym, CNCS, and you may hear us also say the corporation. And so that's our federal agency that oversees VISTA. As Chris said, as a VISTA member, you are signing up for 1 year of full-time service. Again, thank you for doing that. And we are looking forward to seeing how you guys are going to strengthen and support your communities. You know in your particular project or in your particular site that you'll be strengthening, expanding, and increasing the reach of anti-poverty organizations and programs in your communities. You're going to work on projects with staff and volunteers to help build the capacity of those organizations rather than providing direct service to people in need in those communities. At the heart of VISTA service is your VISTA assignment description. This is my buddy, the VAD. It tells the VAD will tell you the overarching goals of your project. So each of you will have your own VISTA assignment description, or VAD. It's going to tell you your goals. It'll explain the objectives that you're working towards during your year, and it lays out the specific activities that you will do in order to accomplish your objective. So the VAD really has the meat of your service year in it. As I said, all members will have a VISTA assignment description. If you don't have your VAD at your fingertips, if you haven't seen it lately or you haven't seen it yet, you can download a copy of the VAD in the My AmeriCorps portal. So the place we were pointing you to a few moments ago for your paperwork and your accessing your terms and conditions course, all of that, you can also find your VAD. One thing that's really, really good to know, and I always want to emphasize with folks, is that it's super important to find out who actually wrote the VAD that you are taking on. So who was the author? Who were the authors of your VISTA assignment description? Something we know for a fact is that in a lot of cases, the person who wrote your VAD is not your actual direct supervisor. And there are a lot of reasons for that. It can be staff turnover. There could just be a lot of time that's passed. since your VAD was written and you're coming on board. So just really want to make sure that you put it on your list of things to do when you get on site next week. To check in with your supervisor, one of the first questions to ask them is, who wrote this VAD? Where did it come from and how is it developed? I think that can give you some really nice introductory information to your site. So if for some reason you can't find your VISTA assignment description in the portal, or you find it and it doesn't align with what you've agreed to do in your interview for the service position, again, please follow up directly and quickly with your supervisor next week. It's super common that VADs need to be fleshed out a little bit at the beginning of the service year. Again, it's common that there may have been minor changes since the VAD was written and the VISTA comes on board. None of that is a big problem at all. You just want to make sure that you reach out and talk to your supervisor quickly about it. And next week, as Chris and I said, we're going to cover a number of things with you. We also are going to go into more detail about capacity building services provided by VISTA and how that might look in your particular VAD. And if you haven't already, please get a copy of your VISTA assignment description and have that with you on your first day of service.
And before we move on, we're going to pause just a second to see if there are any questions about what you need to do before and on your first day of service. So we're going to take a brief moment or two to check the questions that have come into the Q&A pod before we switch gears and go over some VISTA benefits. So I just want to point out, because I've seen a few questions come in regarding benefits, we are going to go over that in the latter half of this webinar. So we'll kind of hold off on benefits questions. But give us a second to look through. Barbara, I don't know if you saw any specific ones.
Yeah, I saw. So I've seen a few questions in the chat. Couple of folks at least that came in front of my eyeballs were asking about the start time for their first day of service. A couple folks just said, what time am I supposed to show up at my project? And I think there were VISTAs who responded, the exact start time for you obviously is going to depend on your particular site. I think if you haven't yet confirmed, if you don't know for a fact you're supposed to show up at 8 a.m. or 9 a.m. Next Tuesday, it's a good idea to go ahead and reach out to your supervisor this week just to confirm that. I don't think it's never hurts to make sure you're covered so you feel really comfortable when you're getting ready for your first day.
And then, yeah, there was someone who is my VISTA supervisor? Is the question. I saw a couple other similar type questions. So your VISTA supervisor is, it could be one of two. You could have a program supervisor and a direct supervisor, depending on how large your project is. But when we refer to supervisor, it's the person you're going to be working with on a day-to-day basis, who you'll report to and work on your VAD with at your site. So this is probably the person you interviewed with during your interview process for the VISTA position, and it's someone that if you don't have the contact information, the project probably should have provided you with that by now. So if you don't know who your supervisor is and you're not sure who to contact to find that out, please contact your CNCS state office. Again, that's where we mentioned that example of Texas is tx@cns.gov. My home state of North Carolina would be mc@cns.gov.
Great. Yeah, there were also a couple of questions earlier, I think, Chris. When we were talking about the required courses and tutorials, a couple of folks chatted in, how long do those take? And again, I saw some VISTAs responding. Thank you guys for helping each other out and giving each other answers. I can say quickly, I know that the exact length of those courses varies. None of them are more than, I think, 40 minutes is the longest, but definitely, Chris, correct me if I'm wrong about that.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So no other questions I see for this minute. There's a lot going on the Q&A pod.
Yeah, and there's more coming in, we can see, but we're gonna move on, and again, our colleagues who you all are seeing in the Q&A working ferociously to answer all these questions. So they'll get to you, and we'll also have a chance for Q&A towards the end as well. Okay, so let's talk about some of those questions coming in. The benefits of service. So as a VISTA member, there are a lot of benefits available during your year of service. As you've seen, this page of the VISTA campus contains an overview of all of your benefits. Some benefits, such as the living allowance, are available to all VISTAs. Other benefits may only be useful for some of you, such as the child care assistance. It's your responsibility to look up the details and action steps required to make use of your benefits. If you have questions about your benefits, make a note to review the benefits section that Barbara mentioned previously as well on the VISTA campus. That benefits section is great. It has a ton of information and a ton of links. So right now, we're going to go over and provide certain details about some of the benefits that seem to really generate the most questions from VISTAs.
Awesome. Okay, so we're going to begin by talking about the living allowance, right? I think that's got to be the hot question on everybody's mind. As Chris indicated on the benefits page on the VISTA campus, you can click on the living allowance link and you'll find a lot of information about your particular living allowance benefit. There are additional links at the bottom under resources where you can find out more information about your living allowance, including tips on how to live on it while you're at VISTA. You'll also find here a living allowance calendar and access to the living allowance rates, since the actual payment rates that you guys will receive is going to vary across the country. So again, VISTA campus, you can find the calendar for the year of when to expect your payments and what the rates are around the country as well. If for some reason you have not yet seen what your specific living allowance is, the calendar and the rates chart I mentioned, those are definitely the places to go. If for some reason you're not seeing that information online, you can check in with your VISTA supervisor if you're in contact with him or her, or your CNCS state office. As Chris mentioned, they are also a great resource for information. Or you can reach out to the National Service Hotline. All of those are sources of information for you about the living allowance. All right, so thinking about the timing and the amount of the living allowance, you might be interested to know when you're going to get paid for the first time. When you're going to get your first living allowance payment. Does anyone happen to know the answer to that question? When are you going to get your first payment? If you do know the answer, if you want to take a guess, type it in the chat. Let's see, I'm seeing some 9/20s, 2 weeks in, yep, 9/20/2019, yep, midway in September, okay, lots of answers. I see lots of folks typing in answers there. Great, thank you. So drum roll, your first living allowance, it looks like most people got that correct on the chat box, will be September 20th. VISTAs are paid every 2 weeks, so as a number of folks indicated in the chat, it's about 2 weeks in from your start date, and the living allowance payments are made on Fridays. So this information does apply to most of you, most VISTAs around the country. Some of you, though, may be paid directly. You may receive your living allowance directly from your VISTA sponsor, and that could impact the exact timing of when you get your living allowance. So again, just like checking in with your supervisor next week about your VISTA assignment description, please also put on your list to confirm with your VISTA supervisor whether or not you are going to get your living allowance paid directly by them, directly by the sponsor. That's a big question for you to ask next week. Good to know, although it is not great information, it's not great news to share, federal taxes are withheld from the living allowance, and super important to know, state taxes are not withheld. So it'll be up to each of you in your own location to determine your level of responsibility or the amount of state taxes that you're going to owe. In order to do that, I suggest you check with your state tax office online. You can also visit the comptroller's website in your particular state to get more details. If you are paid directly by VISTA, so directly out of the VISTA program, you can access your living allowance statement in the portal, in the myamericorps.gov portal, along with so much other great information. And then if you're paid directly by your VISTA sponsor, if you find that out next week, you'll actually get your pay statements from them, so from your supervisor, from your sponsor directly. It is good to know that VISTA service does not qualify you to receive unemployment compensation after your year is over. And this is because you're not, as an enrolled VISTA member, you're not an employee of the federal government or of your project site. So again, the service does not qualify you for unemployment insurance at the end of your year. All right, so we're gonna keep on down the trail to talk about your money and your living allowance. One thing we want to do is to make sure that you get your living allowance on time and that you get it correctly administered to you, is to have you complete your direct deposit information correctly. And so you can see now on the slide in front of you a few different important pieces of information. Something that we just cannot overemphasize for you is if, for some reason, the two big pieces of information we need for your direct deposit, the routing number for your account and the account number itself, if either of those or both of those are wrong, you won't get your living allowance payment as scheduled. And it's really, really important to know that if there is an error and there's a delay in your living allowance, you're going to have to wait at least 2 more weeks until the next pay period, possibly longer. And that is because the living allowance dispersions are part of a large federal payment management system, and we cannot fix a mistake quickly. That's just a big piece of news. So as you can see on the slide, you can find the routing number and account number on your checks if you have them, if you have hard copy checks, or you can go to your bank site online to get those two pieces of information. You may also want to call your bank if that's easier for you, just to verify that you have the correct routing and account number for your direct deposit. Again, I know this is a really simple task, but it's so, so important that we get this right here at the beginning. So please, we recommend that you double, triple, quadruple check these numbers, have somebody else do it for you, just to make sure that they're accurate in the myamericorps.gov account.
And then related to living allowance and income is public assistance that may be tied to income or money that you are receiving. If you are already receiving public assistance, such as TANF or LIHEAP, then your VISTA living allowance or any other payments you receive from the VISTA program should not affect the level of assistance you receive. Likewise, in applying for new public assistance benefits, your living allowance should not be factored in when determining the level of benefits you receive. Now there's one sole exception to this provision, and it's SNAP, or what was formerly called food stamps. If you enroll in SNAP now or at any time during your year of service, your VISTA living allowance and other VISTA payments will be counted as income in calculating your eligibility and benefit level. If you are already receiving SNAP prior to enrolling in the VISTA program, then your benefit will remain unchanged. So it kind of depends on if you are already receiving or if you're just now going to apply. Public benefits are managed by state or local entities, and CNCS is not involved in how they are administered. So you'll want to speak with a caseworker for advice. It's a common question that comes up, what's the process to apply for SNAP. We don't really have much guidance on that because it's administered by a totally different agency. So in about 2 weeks, you will be able to access, view, and print your service letters from your home page in your MyAmericorps account. So there's, as you can see kind of on the slide, I know it's a little small, but there's an arrow pointing to a tab on the left-hand side that'll be available in about 2 weeks. It says My Service Letters. And when applying for public assistance, you will be able to print a letter citing the authority for what's called income disregard from your account. So you would click on that tab and you can gain access to that service letter at any time by a PDF.
All right. So I get to talk again about money, only this time it's not your upfront living allowance and your direct deposit. It's about your end of service benefit. So fast forward a year from next Tuesday, and you guys are just at the end of your service year. After you successfully complete VISTA service, you'll be eligible for one of two benefits. So as you can see on the slide, you can earn and you can request an education award, or you can earn and request a cash stipend. So I'm going to just share a little bit of information about these two different benefits and what they mean, and then just give you a quick heads up about something that's pretty timely regarding this benefit. So the Education Award, or the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award, can be used to pay any qualified federal student loans, and it can also be used to pay for future tuition or future education at a Title IV institution. So that's a college or university that is an institution that accepts federal funds. You will have up to 7 years to use your education award, so that means to use it to pay off loans after you complete VISTA, or to use it for future tuition or future education. Something that's good to know about the Ed Award is that it's not transferable. It is for you and you alone in recognition and as a benefit to your VISTA service. The second option you have, as you see, is a cash stipend. And the cash stipend is something that's paid directly to VISTA members via direct deposit. So that cash stipend amount that you see on the screen would show up at the end of your VISTA service if that is the benefit that you choose. I think there are a couple of things to know. The most important detail is to know that you have to select which of these benefits you want. And if for some reason you're not sure right now, you're not sure if you want to go back to school and use the Ed Award, you're not sure if you're going to have student loans within 7 years, you're not sure if you want the cash stipend, we really suggest that right now, as you're starting up in your VISTA year, that you select the Education Award. And the reason we say that is because you have up to 10 months within your VISTA year to switch from Education Award as your end of service benefit to the cash stipend, right? So right now you select Ed Award and say February you decide, nope, I'd actually prefer the cash stipend. You can do that if, as of now, you've selected the Ed Award. The thing that's really urgent for you to know is that once you start, so after next Tuesday, right, after your first day of service, you cannot switch the other way. You cannot switch from a cash stipend as your end of service benefit to the Education Award. Really, really big deal, as you can see on the slide in front of you. So when you choose a cash stipend, if you've already done that or if you leave it, that is your decision this week, and you start your service next Tuesday, then that is your decision. You'll get the cash stipend. But if you select the Education Award, if you've already selected the Ed Award, it'll give you some flexibility up until the 10th month, right? So that's like June of next year. It gives you a good chunk of time. So please, if you're undecided, take the option that's going to give you the most flexibility. You can find a lot more details about the Ed Award, about the eligibility, what it means, what it covers. There are a lot of schools around the country that actually match the Education Award, and that's really good information to know. And then there are a bunch of other tips and resources related to the Education Award, again, on the VISTA campus, which we are promoting heavily with you today. All right, talking a little bit more about money. For anyone who has student loans, there are ways that you can postpone repayment of federally backed student loans during your year of VISTA service. I know this is a huge deal, huge benefit. So if you choose the Education Award, you can request forbearance for your federally backed student loans, which means you don't have to make monthly payments during your year. And you can also ask that the National Service Trust, which is managed by CNCS, that the trust will pay the accrued interest on your federal loans after you successfully complete your year of service. So again, great benefit, really good to know that this exists. Good piece of information, though it's not great news to share, is that if you do get that interest paid, if you get that accrued interest paid, it is considered taxable income. Everything is taxable in these benefits. So federal loan forbearance is not guaranteed, as with other benefits we've been talking about today. You have to initiate the process. You have to get a loan forbearance request, get that submitted in the portal. So in your account in myamericorps.gov, you're going to be able to do that about a week after you start next week, so in about 2 weeks from now. you should be able to submit that forbearance request in the portal. If you select the end-of-service cash stipend, or if you have private student loans, meaning you don't have federally backed student loans, you can request loan deferment, which means you will apply directly to your lender, so whoever holds those private loans. And the reason you're going to request this deferment is for economic hardship. You may be able to have the accrued interest paid by the Department of Education. That could be a benefit that's available to you for this process. And you may be able to have a portion of your Perkins loans forgiven. So a lot of words related to student loans, but these are really good benefits and really important for you to know about now, and again for you to take action on if they apply to you. Neither of these are going to happen automatically, neither the deferment nor the forbearance, and you'll need to request them either in the portal as we mentioned or with your lender directly. All right, and so on the slide here, if you haven't noted these already, you can see there's another link from the CNCS website to provide even more information about that education award that we mentioned a moment ago. And then again, in the myamericorps.gov, the portal website, you can find the information for the forbearance request. So please, if this applies to you, jump right in and get these requests submitted and check on the status once you start your year next week. And then at the end of the year, just please make sure that you know and that you're ready to submit your education award payment request, as well as any request to get that accrued interest on your loans paid.
And next up, we're going to look at healthcare benefits. So the VISTA program offers two different health benefit options. One is for VISTAs who currently have health coverage, like insurance or Medicaid, and the other for VISTAs who don't have health coverage. So for starters, if you have health insurance or other coverage, you are eligible to enroll in the VISTA Healthcare Allowance. And this is the benefit that provides reimbursement up to $7,900 for qualifying out-of-pocket healthcare expenses. You can use that healthcare allowance towards certain out-of-pocket expenses, such as co-payments for office visits, services or possibly prescriptions, also medications and medical supplies. You can also use it towards meeting your annual deductible. One thing to note, the allowance will not reimburse you for the cost of buying that health insurance, or your monthly premium, it won't cover that. And if you don't have any health coverage, you are eligible to enroll in the AmeriCorps VISTA Health Benefit Plan, the second one. And this is a safety net plan that covers basic health care needs. It covers many basic services with very low copays, but it has some limitations and it does not cover pre-existing conditions. There is no deductible for the health benefit plan. Both of these options also include limited dental and vision benefits, and both options are free. So in other words, nothing is deducted from your living allowance, no matter which option you choose. They're free to the VISTA members and a benefit for you. Both options only cover you, the VISTA member, and not family members. To receive a benefit, you must enroll. There is no automatic enrollment. So again, in about 2 weeks, or roughly a week after your start date, you will get an email from IMG, our International Medical Group, who's the VISTA Health Plan Administrator. They'll send an email with instructions on how to enroll. VISTAs who want to seek coverage through the health insurance marketplace can take advantage of a special enrollment period of 60 days. That's 60 days from the start and from your end dates of VISTA service. And you can go to healthcare.gov to shop for plans and see what subsidies you qualify for. But to enroll during a special enrollment period, you will need to call the marketplace.
There are a couple of other benefits I want to talk through with you as well. As we mentioned, these both may not apply to you, but just want to hit some of the highlights so you can determine if they do. So I'm going to talk just quickly about the relocation and then the child care benefits. So for those on the call today, and as you guys can see, we have over 600 VISTAs on the line, so it's great to see you. For those of you who are relocating more than 50 miles from your home of record to your service site, so you're actually moving to serve at the VISTA, you may qualify for a relocation travel allowance and a one-time settling in allowance. If you're eligible for financial travel support, you should have already received communication directly from that VISTA member support unit that Chris mentioned a minute ago, or the VMSU. If you located for more than 50 miles to your service site and have not gotten an email or have not been contacted by the VMSU, you can directly reach out to that office via the email that you see on the slide. So again, that's vmsu@cns.gov. Secondly, of course, there's a child care benefit that AmeriCorps VISTA offers to members who qualify. So in order to qualify for that child care benefit, you must meet specific eligibility requirements, as with everything else we've talked about. Those may include household income limits, and you must be the parent or legal guardian of a child under 13 who lives with you. So as with the education award and the health care, the other benefits we've discussed, there's a lot more information available for you online. And you can see the website here, AmeriCorpsChildcare.com, to find more information about child care benefits.
And as a VISTA member, you have certain leave benefits available during your year of service. You have 10 days of personal leave and 10 days of sick leave available to you. But make sure to read the VISTA member handbook regarding the time periods you are permitted to use your leave. Additionally, you will be able to observe the national holidays that are recognized by your service site. So, for example, if your site observes Veterans Day as a day off, then you would also have that day off. However, you do not get excused leave for federal holidays that aren't or are not recognized by your site. So, for example, if your site does not give its staff a holiday for Veterans Day, that means you are also expected to serve that day, unless, of course, you request and receive approval for a day of personal leave on that day. You also do not get excused leave if your site is closed for several days or for an extended period of time. So an example there might be over the winter holidays. Sometimes some VISTAs are working with, around schools or with schools, and there's a long break over the winter holidays. So you don't get a 2-week break in that instance. And in those cases, yeah, sure, you could get a couple of days off for the federal holidays, but then you would need to work with your supervisor to have a plan to serve during that time, and they should know this, so they should have this ready for you when that occurs. And your supervisor and yourself will monitor your time and attendance. That's a question that often comes up, regarding how do I log my hours. And they'll go over that with you next week during your first week of service, your on-site orientation and training. So your supervisor and yourself will monitor it, and you will send any leave requests to your supervisor as well. And I know we just covered a lot of information, and as you've heard, and as a VISTA, you have access to a lot of benefits during your year. And we hope that you now have a better idea of at least how to find out more about those benefits, and also what action steps are needed in order to make the most use of them. And right now, we're just going to go over and review with you some of the key terms and conditions of VISTA service. So we know that many of you have already completed the VISTA terms and conditions online, but we want to make sure everyone is clear on the conditions, so we are going to do a quick interactive activity to review the main conditions of VISTA service. And here's how it's going to work. So we're going to read a service activity, and using the annotation tool, you'll be able to indicate whether you believe the answer is yes or no. There's an image of the annotation tool on the screen right there, but it's not activated yet. As soon as we move on to the next slide, we'll get that up. And just instructions in general to use that annotation tool, you see the arrow. You'll first select that square icon in the drawing tool pane. pane, on the left side of the slide, and that'll activate the annotation toolbar. Then you'll select the little tiny arrow next to the square to expand your shape options, and then we recommend selecting either the X or the check mark. And then you could select anywhere on the slide to place your response. We'll have the response on the screen. You'll be able to see which side to put it on. And we ask really, please don't drag, click and drag the mouse or a mouse pad when placing your symbol on the screen. A simple click will suffice. And because there's so, as Barbara mentioned, there's a lot of this is on this, so we want to be able to see everyone's answer, and if you click and drag, it happens to cover up quite a few answers. So please, just a simple click is fine. And just a note, as we mentioned at the very beginning, if you're watching this on a phone or tablet, the annotation function will not work, but in that case, you can put your answer in the chat box, which we'll be monitoring as well. So we're going to get this annotation tool up and running. So let's get started with the first question.
All right. I can voice my political opinion using social media where my profile identifies me as an AmeriCorps VISTA member. So what do you guys think about that? I'm seeing some yeses, some no's, a bunch of no's in the chat box, it looks like. A nope. I see a yes, a nah. No, 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 1,000 times no. Some yeses, some no's. Okay, so it looks like a pretty split group on that. Good, yep, lots of good answers. Okay, let's see what the answer is on this particular example. So the answer to can I voice my political opinion using social media where my profile identifies me as an AmeriCorps VISTA member is, the correct answer is that yes, you actually can do that. You can have VISTA listed on your social media profile, and you can voice your political opinion, right? You're a human being. You live on the media. However, there are some restrictions, and we want to be really clear about this and really mindful about this. One thing you cannot do is represent yourself as a spokesperson speaking on behalf of AmeriCorps, VISTA, of CNCS, or of your sponsor organization, right? It's your personal profile, it's your personal opinion. Additionally, you can absolutely voice your political opinions on your own time when you're not serving at your site, at your project, and when you're not using equipment from your site or from your project. So even if, let's say, you're taking a lunch break and you're at your office, you should not be logging in and posting political opinions or political information at the computer or using the Wi-Fi network at your site. All of this should be done on your own time using your own resources. You should not put, we ask you to really be sensitive about using the logos from the corporation or from AmeriCorps VISTA and any photos in which you're engaged in political activity or other sensitive activities on social media. So okay to identify yourself as a VISTA member with the VISTA logo. That's what you're doing this year. That's a part of your year and your life. Not okay to wear anything to a protest or to conduct any activities that may be political or sensitive while you're using the logo or wearing gear. If you at any point are in doubt about any of this, about whether or not to keep your VISTA service and your political activity, about the mingling and how separate you should keep them, always, always, always err on the side of caution. That's in your interest personally. It's in our interest collectively to make sure that the VISTA program remains the bipartisan and nonpartisan program that it in fact is. There is a federal law called the Hatch Act that governs our behavior in this area, and I really encourage you, if you have any questions or you want more information about that, to check it out. Again, that's called the Hatch Act.
Okay, so second one, I can demonstrate in a political rally. Yes or no? And we'll give it 30 seconds to see everyone's responses. Looks like so far in the chat it's mostly yeses, although there's a smattering of no's. On the screen, it looks a little more even.
There's an emphatic yes.
Yes, that's very emphatic.
There's a big yes on the screen.
Okay, we'll give it another couple seconds. Still looking overall even, but I would say mostly yes. And the answer is most of everyone is correct. So yes, as long as you are not identified as a VISTA or perceived to be a VISTA. So that whole the perceived to be a VISTA note is pretty important because some of you may be serving in a really small town or a neighborhood where you are not necessarily out wearing your VISTA polo shirt, but people will happen to know that you are a VISTA member and serving as a VISTA. And in cases like that or other cases where there's any doubts about a specific activity, we recommend that it's best to avoid it initially and consult with your supervisor or state office for approval or at a minimum for some clarification.
Cool. All right. So next up, we're going to talk more about politics. Politics and money, my faves. The question is, or the statement is, I, as a VISTA, can ask people to donate money to a partisan political candidate as long as it's on my own time and I'm not identified as a VISTA member. So this is a multi-part one. What do you guys think about this? Oh, lots of, let's see, I'm seeing lots of no's. No. Hazar says no with many, many O's. Oh, okay, some yeses, I see. Some big no's, again, emphatic no's on the screen. Giant X's over there. Okay, so good. There's an arrow. Yes, oh, one X to rule them all. We've had a final X on this one. All right, so thank you guys for getting those answers in, a good mix it looks like, and the correct answer is, we'll show that in just a second, can you ask people to donate money to a partisan political candidate as long as it's on your own time and you're not identified as a VISTA? The answer is that no. No, you cannot raise money on behalf of a partisan political candidate. Again, this is a person, someone running for office, at any time during your VISTA year. It doesn't matter, does not matter if you're off duty or at home, doesn't matter if you're identified as a VISTA or not. It is simply and completely prohibited. Again, the federal law, the Hatch Act I mentioned a moment ago, prohibits this specifically, this specific activity, no fundraising for partisan political candidates while serving in VISTA. You can, however, the good news is, you can, however, raise money to support an issue or a cause, right? So an issue, not a person. And again, you can do that as long as it's on your own time and you're not identified as a VISTA. So no on the candidates, but yes on the issue.
Okay, so how about, and this is one that generally most get correct, I can have outside employment and or earn additional income while serving as a VISTA member. Is that a yes or no? See the answers coming into the chat already emphatically yes. Yeah, we have the large stars and X's. Again, if you can, try to keep them a little smaller just so we can see everyone's answer. Yeah, everyone trying to one-up
trying
each
to get
other.
bigger.
Yeah.
I will be the biggest. Check.
Yeah, so everyone is, I don't even see one no on the right. So, emphatically yes, the answer is yes. While you are allowed to have outside part-time employment, we do ask this question, even though everyone gets it correct, because we want to point out a few key policy items that you should keep in mind. So outside employment must not conflict with your project service or service hours, nor can it conflict with any applicable law or VISTA program requirements or policies. Under no circumstances may a VISTA member be an employee of or contractor for the sponsor or project to which they are assigned to serve. Also, your supervisor must approve and agree that the outside work will not interfere with the VISTA project. If the work does interfere, the VISTA may be asked to either end employment or to end VISTA service. Actually just got an email from someone who started earlier this summer, a VISTA that started earlier, asking my job situation kind of changed, and now I'm wondering if I can change my VISTA service from full-time to part-time VISTA service because I'm going to be working more hours. And so that's one of those cases where this comes into effect, where your VISTA service really needs to take priority. All VISTA members are full-time, so you're working full-time throughout the week for 365 days. And that's where this outside employment policy kind of comes in mind, where it's part-time employment and it shouldn't interfere with your VISTA assignments. A couple other notes. So you will have to, if you do have outside employment, you'll have to complete this outside employment request form, which is available within the outside employment policy. Yes, we know, another form, but we promise it's a really simple and short form that's available on the VISTA campus. You can just search outside employment policy, or even employment, I think would work, to see in the search results at least. And it's a short one-page form that you submit to your supervisor, and they have that on file. We have a link at the bottom there, and that link is actually also available on the helpful links document in this webinar, just as an FYI.
Cool. So I know that Chris and I have given you a lot of information today. You've likely seen a lot of written information before today, and we hope that we've highlighted a few key steps for you and really, really important policy rules and guidelines that we want to make sure you know of right now. So I just want to recap some of the burning items for you to do by tomorrow and then by next Tuesday, because as you can see on the slide and as you've heard us say, there are a bunch of different things happening, and we just want to make sure that you know what's coming and know what to get done by when. All right, so here's what you need to do by tomorrow. We need to make sure that in the myAmericorps.gov portal, so in the portal, make sure your direct deposit is in there and that it's complete. Remember, do that double, triple checking thing to make sure those numbers are accurate. You also want to complete your federal tax withholding, or your W-4, your unpaid compensation information, and then your end of service benefit selection. Side note on that end of service, select education award if you're not sure. All right, and then in terms of tutorials or courses to complete, there's a list you can see on the slide in front of you. It includes the terms and conditions, civil rights and responsibilities, benefits, etc. The course that you will need to complete, the ones that are most urgent for you, are these first two courses. So the terms and conditions of service, if you haven't completed that yet, and then the civil rights and responsibilities course. It's super important. I think Chris and I have said this, but it's worth saying again. We absolutely have to get your acceptance of the terms and conditions before you start service next Tuesday. Can't get you in the system without that.
And now that we've taken care of those action items, we really want to know what you thought. How can we improve this presentation for future VISTA members who are coming on board in the next months or even next year? So please take a few moments to complete a brief survey for us, because we really we appreciate your feedback, and we use your feedback to try to improve these webinars. You can see the link being brought on to over the slides right there, where you can again, I don't believe double clicking it works. You have to select it first. So just click the link, and then down below you select Browse To. That link will also be shared in the chat for those on a mobile device. So yep, it was just shared, so you could click that there. And we're gonna give we're gonna leave that up there just a few moments, and Barbara and I are gonna look through some of the questions that have come into the Q&A and kind of queue up some that see the questions on what you need to do both before and on your first day of service, or possibly questions on benefits. We know we saw a bunch of those come in. It looks like a bunch of them have been answered, but there's still some more coming in. So, hey,
I definitely saw a couple sort of trends in the chat box, Chris. I don't know if this is repeated in the Q&A as well. But a few moments ago, there was a lot of chatter about holidays and whether or not Vistas will get Labor Day off, so next week. Also, questions, are holidays paid? Similarly, there are a couple of questions about just time, how to request time off, and how to log hours. So don't know if there's anything generally you would say to that, or if people should do specific questions.
There's a couple common ones there. So, well, first off, Labor Day off, yes, all of you have that off because your start date isn't until September 3rd, and Labor Day is September 2nd, correct? Yes, okay. As long as I wasn't missing anything. So you have it all off, but you unfortunately will not be paid as a VISTA that day because you won't swear in and take the oath until Tuesday, September 3rd. That's your start date. In terms of other holidays, your projects may have different, again, each project is going to have a different manner for logging your hours, different software, or maybe at some sites, maybe the supervisor just handles it for the VISTA because they're with them all day and they know what hours they worked. It could differ from site to site. So how you log your hours as a VISTA, you'll find out more about that during your first week. And that'll be the same as requesting time off, whether it's a personal day or a day of a sick day. Each project may have a different mechanism for doing so. It's not done within My AmeriCorps or the VISTA campus. It'll be done at your project site.
Great. There were also a couple of questions about gear, about when folks what kind of VISTA gear will people get and when will they get it. And I know we talk about that on next Tuesday's webinar. We give some of the details. I think generally we're looking at early to mid-October when folks will be able to request gear. Does that sound about right in terms of timing?
It sounds about right, but we don't want to promise anything. I would say that's the general time frame, but with so many VISTAs and not only on starting with this cohort on September 3rd, we've just had so many VISTAs this month and last month that don't want to promise anything too soon, but you should receive a communication. I think you're right. Early October to mid-October, you're probably right. Maybe a month after starting, you should look for that. But again, we don't want to promise that. But you will get it, and we'll go over that more next week.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that. And I do see Stephen posted that he already has his gear from last year. So there's some braggadociousness going on in the chat box, which is great. There was also a question a couple of minutes ago about what's the difference between a VISTA leader and a VISTA member, which I think is kind of interesting. We hadn't touched on that at all. The quick answer to that is that VISTA leaders are individuals who've already served, so folks who've served in VISTA or the Peace Corps. They have, dependent on the particular project, they have a leadership role that may include training and supporting a cohort of first-year VISTA members. It may include training beyond the project at a state level or regional level. So the exact VISTA leader assignment description, or the VLAD, that's right, the VLAD, will depend on the particular project and on the particular leader. But they're typically second-year members. I don't know if there are other differences you think are worth noting, Chris?
No, I think that's a great general overview. Just want to point out that yes, VISTA always looks for VISTA leaders. By all means, look into it. There's details on the VISTA campus if you want to really go into the weeds, and especially as you start nearing the end of your year of service, you could certainly look into that. We're always looking for leaders.
Great. So those are some of the big bits that I saw in the chat box. Any other?
Looking through, I saw when we were going over, I believe it was either the forms or when you were speaking about the end of service option, someone had mentioned in the chat and the Q&A if it's too late to make a change. Hey, I made a selection, the cash stipend, but I want to change it to the education award. And I think you mentioned it or at least touched on it. So yes, you could still make those changes even if you've completed all of your forms. You have really up until your start date to make a change. If you start reading a little more, you get onto the VISTA campus, read on the education award, decide, hey, I want that instead, or vice versa. You can go into your My AmeriCorps account, change it from one to the other up until your start date, up until basically this webinar next week, that 3 p.m. Eastern Time webinar on Tuesday. So by all means.
Great. Someone asked about the federal hiring, Rachel asked about the federal hiring preference, if that's still a benefit for VISTAs. And I can't remember if we're going to talk about that next week or not, so it's a good question for folks to know.
It is a good question. I don't think we do.
Yeah, I know it's on the campus and in the materials. But.
Yeah. So yeah, and I think they're referring to the non-competitive eligibility. That's certainly a benefit. It's a great benefit for VISTAs. So once you complete your year of service, you'll all have access to a service letter in your My AmeriCorps account. That service letter serves, it has the code and language that references the non-competitive eligibility. That's good for, it's good for 1 year, but there are ways to actually extend that. For instance, if you go to grad school directly after your VISTA service, you can request to extend that to up to 3 years instead. So grad school for 2 years, and then you'll have an additional year after that to apply. And there's some resources on the campus regarding non-competitive eligibility. It's something we recommend including in your cover letters, even mentioning in emails or in your interviews or just prior to applying. Just making that stick out a little bit. Hey, I have non-competitive eligibility at the top of your cover letter is always great to highlight. Oh, but and I think well, I know I mentioned it, but I don't know if I specified that service letter is available to you forever after you end your service in your My AmeriCorps account. The non-competitive eligibility part, of course, isn't available forever, but you'll always have access to that service letter after you complete your service to show proof of your service.
Great. There were a couple questions about what should people wear to the site? What is the workplace attire? Umama is asking, and that's a great question. It's definitely going to depend on your particular site. I think if you have not confirmed this week what the dress code is for your office, we always just recommend that you dress conservatively and dress business casual. So long pants, conservative shirt or jacket, and then just see once you get there. Some projects are really, really casual on site, and some of them are going to be a little more gutsy up. So you can check that out when you get there. There's also a question about the in-service trainings and what we'll provide and when folks will know more about that. So do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, and that's something we do touch on a little bit next week, but yeah, it's a great question, and we're glad you're interested. So in-service trainings, VISTA offers those to VISTAs within their roughly first third of service. We try to look at those who are around months 2 through 5. So, and we invite VISTAs regionally, kind of geographically based, to an area. We'll cover your travel, your hotel, and your meals while there. It's a 3.5-day training where we have several different modules, so 4 core modules, and as well as some elective options throughout those 3.5 days where we offer those trainings to VISTAs and certain topics to help you succeed at your VISTA site. And it's intended for those in kind of earlier in their service so that they could take that training and go back to their VISTA site and use that and implement it there.
So just see a question from Xavier. What does it mean for a company to match the education award? And I definitely want to answer this because it's a phenomenal benefit. So Xavier, I'm not sure if you mean a company or a school. I'll do the school PR piece. If you get the education award for your AmeriCorps end of service benefit and go to a particular university or college, there's a whole bunch of them around the country that will provide a dollar-for-dollar match. So if your education benefit is $6,095, the school that you go to will also provide $6,095 for your tuition. So that is a great benefit, and is something that's been in place for a few years with AmeriCorps, and definitely worth looking into if you're looking into future education. So check out the match. And we mentioned this, I think, earlier. You can find out more about that at nationalservice.gov/EdAwards, I think is the particular landing page for the Education Award.
And I did see, and it's a relatively common question too. I saw at least one here, but comes up quite a bit about the Education Award and how it's used, as well as if you can have to use it all at once at the end. So we just wanted to point out that after you receive your Education Award at the end, you can make partial payments on some past loans possibly. You can also, but it does not have to be the full amount, and then you could save the rest to use for future expenses if you wish to take courses or pay for books in the future. And you have 7 years to use it. I think that question came up as well after the end of your year of service. So you'll have 7 years to use that Education Award. It's taxed in the year used. To point that out as well. But I see your team answering questions, but I think we are going to wrap up our session, and we want to certainly thank everyone for joining us on this call and for deciding to choose to join VISTA. We certainly look forward to seeing everyone again. It's next Tuesday, September 3rd, your first day of service, for that Launching Your VISTA Service webinar. And that's the webinar where you'll swear in as a VISTA. So it is required, and if for any reason you hear otherwise that you don't need to attend it, just reach out to me. We'll clarify. We'll discuss matters, but you just shoot me a quick email. Hey, Chris, I think I had a different thing going on at my project during my training. Comes up quite a bit. Just shoot me an email. We'll figure it out. So in the meantime, we hope that you all have a wonderful week. And from all of us here at VISTA and CNCS, thank you.